So my mom and grandmother's generation really hate Brussels sprouts. They really hate them, to the point of almost pride. And I think that this has to do with the way that they're often cooked. Brussels sprouts, if they're overcooked or boiled, tend to be bitter and then they don't really have any flavor. So today I'm going to show you how to make some tasty and flavorful Brussels sprouts. And I'll be following the kind of modern food trend of cooking them with bacon, but don't worry, I have some vegan tips if you want to make this in an alternate way. In the end, this recipe is very quick, it's very simple, and it's sure to impress any of the older people that you know. Okay, so let's get started by actually preparing our Brussels sprouts. Now to do this, we're going to actually want to cut off the bottoms, which is tough and inedible, and then cut them in half. And additionally, we're going to want to peel off the outer two leaves of the Brussels sprouts. Now these leaves are usually a little bit tougher and they're partially responsible for that bitter taste. So it should feel kind of tender or look very green and new when you actually have them. So once they're cut, go ahead and place them into a bowl and we'll set this off to the side. Now for this recipe, I'm using about 1 pound or about 450 grams of Brussels sprouts, but you can easily double this or halve this depending on what you want to do. Alright, next we're going to cut up about 3 slices of bacon, and I'm using some nice smoked thick bacon here, which is really great and gives that extra flavor. But if you don't want to use bacon, some thickly cut mushrooms would work really well here to kind of give some textural contrast to the Brussels sprouts. Okay, so now with the prep out of the way, we can go ahead and actually start cooking. So we're going to heat up a cast iron pan over medium heat, giving it a few minutes for the whole pan to kind of really heat up to the same temperature. Cast iron tends to take a little while to heat up, but once it gets there, it tends to maintain its temperature for a while, so it's pretty good for that. Once the pan is up to heat, we're going to go ahead and throw our bacon slices in. As they cook, the fat will render out and the bacon will itself become crispy. If you're using mushrooms, we're just going to follow the same thing, but just go ahead and add some vegetable oil in, since there isn't fat from the mushrooms that can render out. Now once we see that our bacon is nice and crispy, we're going to go ahead and remove it from the pan, but we're going to leave the fat or oil behind. So the next thing we're going to do is actually start cooking the Brussels sprouts. Now place the Brussels sprouts in the pan face down like this. What this is doing is actually kind of charring and browning the surface of the Brussels sprouts while kind of steaming the interior. This is a really great way of cooking Brussels sprouts. Now fit in as many of them as you can face down and let them sit for about 2 minutes, at which point let's go ahead and give them a stir. If it's looking like your pan is a little bit dry, go ahead and add in some vegetable oil as I did here. We really don't want things too dry here. If we do, we run the risk of actually burning the Brussels sprouts. Now this is also a good point to add some salt in, and we're just going to give this a stir and kind of let it cook for about 5 minutes, just kind of stirring every once in a while. Now while the Brussels sprouts cook, we can use this time to prepare the dressing that we're going to coat this in later. Now for the dressing, we need about 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and for some subtle sweetness, I'm using about 1 teaspoon of maple syrup, and for me, I'm going to add a little bit of red chili flakes, but this is totally optional, and if you don't want to include it, that's okay. Now let's return to our Brussels sprouts, and once they kind of look tender like this, we're done cooking them. So let's go ahead and add in a very optional handful of pecans, which gives another layer of texture to the dish. And then we can go ahead and also toss our bacon back in. Now we're going to stir this all up and let it warm up together. Once everything's heated up a little bit, go ahead and pour it all into a bowl, and then we're going to add our dressing into it. And then we're going to give everything a good toss in the bowl, making sure that the dressing coats everything. And that's basically it. We're done. I hope you enjoyed this really quick recipe. I'm in the process of creating some new Flavor Lab channel upgrades, including a new camera. So I should be back to making longer, more bizarre videos in the future. But in the meantime, I hope you guys are enjoying these vegetable videos. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. And all right, well, I guess that's it. Bye.